Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to Calahonda Creek, near Disenchantment Bay in southeast Alaska. This area is the southern coastal region of the Wrangell St.Elias Mountains, which host a collection of Tidewater glaciers and creates an elevated boundary. This high wall of mountains is a barrier to passing clouds that fill with moisture on the Alaska Current. This current is an ocean current that is warmer than the landmass it passes over, which increases precipitation generally. Due to a higher amount of precipitation and colder temperatures above the landmass, accumulations of snow form glaciers in the valleys. With this net gain of snow each year, the Hubbard Glacier flows down its valley and calves icebergs into Disenchantment Bay. This behavior is what makes it a tidewater glacier, as it does not melt into a stream flowing to a water system, but deposits its ice directly into the sea. These icebergs give way with tremendous cracks, while shelves of ice fall from the glacier's face into the sea, sometimes several hundred feet below. The icebergs that drift into the bay, and eventually to the Gulf of Alaska, act as pupping and molting grounds for harbor seals, providing a floating island very near their food source. The tidewater glacier zones are important sources for fresh water and nutrient cycles in the ocean, and only exist in latitudes above 45 degrees. In Antarctica and Patagonia in the south, and Alaska, Greenland, and Svalbard, Norway. Calahonda Creek climbs the mountain opposite the park boundary on the south side of Disenchantment Bay. It is a very short and straight creek of only about 5 miles in length. The mountains on either side of the creek rise to around 3,500 feet in elevation over a short distance, making them extremely steep in places. Giant Sitka spruce tower over the landscape as the iconic Alaskan tree, and wildflowers, such as wild orchids, blossom in their shadows. Bushes like willow and alder create a majestic color palette each fall as they shed their leaves. On May 13, 2016, a 29-year-old man, whom we'll call Charlie, was camping with some friends and family members along Calahonda Creek. This time of year, the snow is beginning to melt, making the creek rush with clean, cold water. Charlie volunteered to take the bucket down to the creek to fill it with water for cooking breakfast and clean up afterward. Now, Charlie and his family and friends were not greenhorns who were unfamiliar with the wilds of Alaska. I would describe them as adventurers who would gladly risk life and limb to enjoy the peace and beauty of the road less traveled. Given their experience and knowledge of the risks, Charlie packed a firearm, even on his short trip to the creek bank. He also knew that if he made noise while he slowly hiked, any bears in the area would likely hear him and have time to move out, preventing a confrontation. There was no source indicating that Charlie nor anyone in his party had brought bear spray along for this trip. Charlie picked and pushed his way through the dense vegetation toward the creek while talking loudly and glancing around every few yards. He knew that the key to avoiding a bear attack would be to prevent surprising the bear and hopefully detect it while it was still a safe distance away from him. As he worked his way around a tall, thick cluster of brush, Charlie came face to face with an enormous brown bear who wasn't at all happy to see him. The bear was only a few feet from the man, and both were forced to enter the fight-or-flight scenario brought on by a rush of adrenaline. Charlie's best option was to avoid the fight reaction and utilize the flight reaction. He turned and took about a half a step before the bear sent him splaying onto his face. The cold, moist ground offered Charlie no warm welcome, but he knew that wasn't going to be the worst of his problems. He curled his legs beneath him and put his hands around the back of his neck to protect the most vulnerable areas of his anatomy. With the man curled up in this position, the bear's perception of danger likely changed, but its excited response wasn't assuaged. Any portion of Charlie's body that protruded from his position enough to be bitten or swatted was chewed and clawed. Charlie could feel the bear's breath on his skin as it seemed to have a force of its own. As it chewed, the bear huffed and grunted, conveying to Charlie its anger at being surprised at such close range. Each time it bit Charlie, the pressure and pain seared through his body, but each swat from its claws ripped gashes that hurt just the same. After around 2.5 minutes, the bear felt as if it had neutralized any threat Charlie posed, and it disappeared into the nearby brush. Charlie knew better than to pop right up and try to escape. He fought the overwhelming desire to get up and leave, knowing that his safest option was to lay still while searching for the bear's location. If the bear was nearby watching for any signs of life, it could return and inflict even more damage to his body. Charlie peered around, slowly lifting his head to broaden his field of vision. He knew that if he caught even the slightest motion in his peripheral vision, then he would have to freeze and hope the bear hadn't seen him move. After a few long minutes of looking around, he felt confident the bear had left and was no longer waiting for him to move. As he lifted his head, he could feel blood trickling from numerous wounds all over his body. The pain was mitigated by adrenaline for now, but would soon set in. His family and friends were only about 100 yards away, but the noise of the rushing creek would mute any cries for help from him, at least in part. He opted to try to hike back toward his camp while yelling periodically for assistance. After limping his way through the brush and calling out, Charlie heard the welcomed response from one of the camp members. One by one, his family and friends rushed to his side to help him get back to camp. Upon arriving at camp, fellow campers began examining Charlie's injuries. They could see blood pouring from several gashes torn open by the bear's claws and numerous puncture wounds all over his body. The bear seemed to go into a frenzy during the attack, leaving welted bruises around each puncture made by the bear's teeth. Judging by his blood-soaked clothing, they knew they would need to get him to medical attention very soon, or he may perish. Charlie was loaded aboard the boat that brought the campers to their campground. They used the radio on the boat to alert the U.S. Coast Guard and the Yakutat Police Department as they piloted their boat westward through Disenchantment Bay. Several miles down the bay, a Coast Guard vessel came into view. They pulled their boat alongside the craft that held Charlie. On board, they had brought a doctor from the clinic in town, along with various medical supplies he anticipated he would need to patch up Charlie's wounds until they could get him to a hospital. The doctor joined Charlie in his family's boat as the Coast Guard vessel accompanied them back to the harbor. An emergency medical response team was waiting for their arrival at the harbor. Charlie was loaded aboard an ambulance and rushed to the clinic in Yakutat, where he was stabilized. His wounds were cleaned and bandaged, but his journey was not yet complete. A medical helicopter was arranged and equipped to support Charlie as they flew him to the Providence, Alaska Medical Center in Anchorage. The doctors there examined Charlie's wounds and noted that he had portions of his scalp torn off his skull by the bear's claws as it swiped at his head. His right shoulder had numerous nickel-sized punctures from the bear's teeth and serrations from its claws. His left shoulder hadn't fared much better and suffered similar damage. His lower body was severely injured with enormous bite wounds along the outside portions of his thighs and calf muscles. His wounds were exactly what you would expect for someone to receive, as they were curled into the fetal position, protecting himself as best he could. Numerous surgeries were required to close his wounds and fight off the possibility of infection. Charlie's recovery took several months to heal his body, but the wounds in his mind will linger for the rest of his life. He and his family are grateful that his injuries weren't worse and that he lived to tell the tale. As for the bear, its attack on Charlie was chalked up to being a defensive encounter and lined up with expected behavior of a bear involved in a surprise confrontation. It hadn't tried to bury Charlie as a food cache, nor had it returned to the area or defended him against rescuers. No source indicated the presence of cubs, and no action was taken against there pertaining to Charlie's attack. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions. Given Charlie had a firearm and was making noise as he traveled, do you think bear spray may have prevented this attack? Do you think the noise Charlie was making was drowned out by the rushing creek, or did the bear use Charlie's sounds to hone in on him? Is the beauty and peace of a remote area like Disenchantment Bay worth the risk of being attacked by an enormous brown bear? I'll be glad to read and reply to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.